everyone, this is Rabbitearsblog, and welcome to another Movie News Roundup series. So, because I haven't done a lot of Movie News Roundup series for the last few weeks, I will be spending this Movie News Roundup doing a lot of movie news that I haven't gotten to in the last few weeks, so there might be some old movie news in this video that you guys may have seen in the last few weeks. But before we get into this week's movie news, here are a few words from the channel. Alright everybody, it's time to get on the social media train. Want to chat with me in 100 words or less? Then check out my Twitter account. Want to talk about movies, TV shows, and video games within the group? Then check out my Facebook account. Want to check out some of my ultra cool fan art? Then check out my DeviantArt page. Want to get the lowdown on everything that's happening on this channel? Then check all of the above. And now, we return to our regularly scheduled program. So the first bit of news is that Black Widow is set to be released on July 9th, and it will be released in both theaters and on Disney+. The second bit of news is that Godzilla vs. Kong had just broke $70 million at the box office. The third bit of news is that Ace Ventura 3 is in the works, with the writers from Sonic the Hedgehog, Pat Casey and Josh Miller, writing the script. And the last bit of news is that new set photos for the new live-action Powerpuff Girls had just surfaced up. Now let's get into my thoughts for the day, where I talk about my thoughts on this week's movie news. So let's get started. So regarding about Black Widow's release date now being moved to July 9th and being released in both theaters and Disney+, I'm kind of not surprised at this point that Black Widow keeps getting its release date switched up every few months or so because of the pandemic and the fact that a lot of movies nowadays are getting a lot of their release dates changed up because of the pandemic. So I just hope that Black Widow comes out in theaters or on Disney Plus at some point, because I really want to watch this movie. It's like one of my most anticipated movies of 2021, and it's a shame that it was delayed because of the pandemic. So I'm hoping that Black Widow comes out sometime, whether it be on Disney Plus or in theaters. I'm just hoping that the movie comes out soon so I can actually sit down and watch it. The next bit of news is Godzilla vs. Kong making over $70 million at the box office. Now this is actually really good news, because the last film that made a lot of money at the box office during the pandemic was Tenet, which made over $58 million. So the fact that Godzilla vs. Kong was able to make over $70 million at the box office during the pandemic is a really good sign, because it shows that theaters are starting to open up a bit. Sure, it's not as much as it was before because we're still in the middle of a pandemic, but it shows that theaters are slowly starting to open up, because one of the biggest fears that a lot of people had when the pandemic started and a lot of the major blockbuster movies were going to streaming services was that would movie theaters die out because of what's going on with the pandemic and because a lot of movies are moving to streaming services. Well, judging by this news, no. Movie theaters are not dying out, and this is just a temporary setback for movie theaters because, a lot of people are not going to go to movie theaters during a pandemic. But the fact that you have some movie theaters starting to reopen up during the pandemic, and yet you have this movie that's able to make over $70 million at box office through theaters, that's a really good sign with movie theaters and how they might be slowly starting to come back, despite the fact that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. So hopefully the pandemic will die down sometime soon, and maybe all the movies will start getting back into theaters once again, and we can start watching movies in theaters again once this pandemic dies down. So I'm hoping to see that in the near future. But yeah, I'm glad that Godzilla vs. Kong is able to make over $70 million at the box office. The next bit of news I wanted to talk about is Ace Ventura 3 being in the works. Now, I have a confession to make to you guys. I'd never seen any of the Ace Ventura films. Sure, I heard a lot about Ace Ventura when I was little, and I actually did watch bits and pieces of the cartoon series that came out, because back then, whenever a live-action film was successful, they get a cartoon series dedicated to themselves. Like you had a cartoon series of The Mask, and then you had a cartoon series of Beetlejuice at the time. But anyway, I never seen Ace Ventura when I was growing up, so I don't know much about the character or about the humor with this film. But other than that, I am pretty interested in this bit of news, because for one thing, Ace Ventura is getting another movie, which I'm actually surprised with, because for many years a lot of people haven't really talked about Ace Ventura except for the people who actually sat down and watched the movie. So I was surprised that they were going to bring back Ace Ventura again. But on the other hand, there's been a lot of resurgence of older movie properties, like Bill and Ted had a third movie that came out called Bill and Ted Face the Music, and then Coming to America had a sequel that just recently came out. So I'm guessing that Ace Ventura is following this trend of older franchises being brought back to the current generation. So that is good if you were a fan of Ace Ventura growing up and you want the current generation to experience this particular movie, then yeah, this movie being in production is a really good thing for you Ace Ventura fans. And another reason why I was interested in this bit of news is because the writers from Sonic the Hedgehog, Pat Casey and Joss Miller, are going to be the ones who's writing this particular film. Now, I was actually surprised that these two writers from Sonic the Hedgehog is actually going to be writing the Ace Ventura film. So I do wonder how they're going to make the Ace Ventura film. And I also wonder if Jim Carrey himself is going to reprise his role as Ace Ventura. That's another thing I was wondering about with this news, because Jim Carrey is well known for not wanting to do sequels. Like, I think the only two sequels he done over his career was like Dumb and Dumber 2 and Ace Ventura 2. So it makes me wonder if he's thinking about reprising his role as Ace Ventura or not. So I guess we have to wait and see who's going to be cast as Ace Ventura in the third movie. And then the last bit of news is that the Powerpuff Girls set photos had just arrived. So I finally got a chance to check out these set photos, and here are my thoughts about the set photos. And I have to say that the set photos are okay. Like, I don't think that having the Powerpuff Girls dressed this way as adults looks that great, but at the same time, I understand that they're just trying to stay faithful to these characters' designs. I do like the fact that they are dressed in their similar costumes that they were in the original series. Like, you have Bubbles being dressed in blue, you have Buttercup being dressed in green, and you have Blossom being dressed in pink. It's just the weird thing about these set photos is that they're all adults and they're wearing these same costumes that the girls wore in the original series. And it just kind of looks odd on these adult bodies. So that's my personal opinion about these set photos with the Powerpuff Girls, is that, yeah, I like the fact that they're paying homage to the original series by having the Powerpuff Girls dress up as they were in the original series. But at the same time, because they're adults, it just looks a bit weird to me. Like, I think it would have been better if they were wearing jackets or something like that. Although I'm not saying that them wearing these costumes wouldn't make them into adults, but it just seems strange to see these kind of costumes on these characters. And that's the movie news roundup for this week, and tell me in the comments down below, what do you think about this week's movie news? Are you upset that Black Widow got delayed to July 9th? How do you feel about Godzilla vs. Kong breaking box office records during the pandemic? Are you excited for the new Ace Ventura 3 movie coming out? And what are your thoughts about the set photos for the new live-action Powerpuff Girls series? Do you like the photos? Do you hate the photos? Please let me know in the comments down below. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you guys later.